The rain hammered against the tinted windows of the private airport terminal, turning the world outside into a blurry wash of silver and shadow. Billionaire Alexander Cole stepped off his sleek jet, a black umbrella snapping open above him before a single drop could touch his tailored suit. His shoes hit the wet tarmac with the confidence of a man who had closed deals worth more than small countries. But tonight, his stride wasn't triumphant, it was heavy, burdened. The overseas negotiation he had just concluded had been brutal, ethically gray, and morally exhausting. He wasn't supposed to return home until morning, but something in his chest had pulled him back to the one place no one else entered without permission. Home. The mansion that sat alone on a hill, where silence had become furniture and memories lived louder than people. As his bulletproof convoy approached through the storm, he frowned. The sprawling mansion, normally glowing with warm security lighting, was nearly pitch black. Only the faint generator-powered floodlight at the far end flickered sporadically. "Power outage," he muttered. The driver cleared his throat. "Shouldn't be, sir. Your systems run independent of the grid, full redundancy. 3 backup generators." Alexander stared, storm clouds mirrored in his eyes. "Then why is my house dark?" No answer came. He stepped out before his staff could open his door, security detail following with disciplined precision. The massive iron gates recognized his biometric signature and groaned open. The wind howled through the courtyard, whipping his coat behind him as if trying to warn him. Inside, the front door creaked open slower than usual, his palms still flat against the biometric scanner, as though something resisted. The interior was darker than expected, emergency lights casting eerie blue shadows across the marble floor. "Hello?" his voice echoed through the cavernous entry hall. No response. No footsteps. No familiar hum of machinery. Even the automatic fireplace, programmed to greet him when he returned from international flights, sat dead and cold. Something was wrong. He pulled out his phone to check the mansion systems, but for the first time in years, the home security app froze, showing nothing but a spinning circle and a blinking red error message. "Critical system malfunction, manual reset required." His jaw tightened. This fortress was designed to survive cyber attacks, EMP events, even war threats. It never malfunctioned. His voice dropped into command mode. "Security sweep. Full perimeter and interior." The guards dispersed silently, weapons drawn. Alexander walked deeper into the mansion, footsteps echoing like hollow promises. The faint emergency lights revealed nothing initially, until something caught his attention, a brown smear at the edge of the hallway runner rug. He crouched. Mud. But not just mud, footprints. Small. Bare. Wet. Leading toward the grand staircase. His pulse kicked up. Those are not adult prints. And not from anyone who should be here. His mansion was a closed fortress, layered with biometric scanners, motion sensors, and satellite-linked AI surveillance. No one, not even VIP family or corporate board members, entered without clearance. Certainly not, barefoot children. He followed the trail slowly, each footprint imprinting deeper dread into his chest. At the base of the staircase, he paused. The prints continued upward, tiny, irregular steps, like someone exhausted or stumbling. A low rumble of thunder shook the windows. His phone buzzed, head of security. "Sir, no breach detected. All external entries sealed. Motion sensors show negative." Alexander's blood chilled. How does someone enter without entering? He climbed the stairs slowly. The mansion seemed to hold its breath with him. Halfway up, lightning slashed through the sky, illuminating the balcony and corridor ahead. For a split second, he saw it, a small dark silhouette slipping behind the cracked door of his private master suite. Instant adrenaline. That room was untouched. Sacred. A grave of memories. His steps quickened, muscles tensed, breath shallow. He didn't reach for a weapon, he didn't need to. His presence alone carried threat. The door was slightly ajar, the faint scent of rain and soil drifting out. The bedroom was pitch black except for the occasional flash of lightning. He flicked the switch. Nothing. Power still dead. He took one slow step inside. His polished shoes sank into the expensive Persian carpet, now damp in places, as if someone had stood there dripping water. He heard it. A tiny exhale. Barely audible. Not fear. Not pain. Just, sleep. Another lightning flash cracked through the sky, illuminating the massive king-size bed for the briefest heartbeat, revealing a small curled figure beneath the white duvet, dark skin against pale sheets, hair damp, breathing soft and steady. His breath caught. He stepped closer, inch by inch. Every instinct clashing. Intruder. Child. Impossible. How? His palm gripped the edge of the duvet. He pulled it back slowly, bracing for anything, a trap, a hallucination, a ghost. But what he saw paralyzed him. A tiny black girl, no older than 6, slept soundly in his bed, soaked to the bone, shivering, eyelashes still wet from tears, holding something tightly against her chest like a lifeline. A small hand-sewn star, patchworked with mismatched threads, pressed to her heart. She didn't stir. Thunder growled again. Alexander whispered, voice cracking for the first time in years. What in God's name, who are you, and how did you get in here? Alexander stood frozen, his breath fogging slightly in the chilled, powerless room. The little girl adjusted in her sleep, clutching the patchwork star tighter as if she sensed danger even in dreams. Rain battered the windows again, thunder rolling overhead like a warning drum. He swallowed, not trusting his voice again. His instinct was to shake her awake, demand answers, but something held him back. A billionaire trained to negotiate with ruthless competitors suddenly felt fear of a child half his size. He reached out slowly, fingers hovering near her small shoulder when her eyes snapped open. Not gradually, not groggily, immediately, like a soldier trained to wake in survival mode. Large brown eyes, glossy with trauma and unshed tears, locked onto his. She didn't scream. She didn't flinch. She simply stared, breathing quick and shallow, as if analyzing whether he was threat or refuge. Alexander took a step back, not out of fear, but disbelief. He tried again, voice firm but not unkind. Who are you? How did you get into my home? The girl blinked, her lips trembling but no sound emerging. She looked around the room quickly, disoriented, like she had woken somewhere she didn't expect to still be. You weren't supposed to be here, she whispered, voice rasped from exhaustion. His brows drew together. Excuse me. Her eyes darted to the windows, the corners of the room, the door, scanning escape routes. I only needed somewhere, safe. Just for a little while. He inhaled sharply. That answer was not only insufficient, it generated even more impossibilities. He activated his earpiece. Security, return to my position. Quietly. The girl shook her head, panic flickering. No. Please. Please don't call them. He paused, thrown off again. Fear like that wasn't normal, it came from memory, not imagination. He lowered his voice. Little one, this is my private residence. No one, and I mean no one, comes or goes without it being recorded. How did you enter my house? She stared at him, as if weighing whether he was worth telling the truth to. Finally, she whispered something that sent a chill through him. I didn't break in. I wished in. What? She held up her small fabric star, showing him a stitched letter on one point. An initial, barely visible in the dim room. He leaned in, caught between logic and impossibility. The initial was AC. His own initials. He stumbled backward a step, mind racing. Before he could question her further, the security team arrived outside the door, but he raised a hand, signaling them to wait unseen. The girl flinched at the sound of heavy boots outside, eyes glossing with terror. "You told," she whispered brokenly. "You told them. They'll take me back." Alexander frowned, whispering, "Back where?" But instead of answering, she hugged the star to her chest and said, "I didn't mean to sleep. I just got tired. I walked and walked and walked, and when I saw the house on the hill, I thought maybe this one didn't belong to bad people." His throat tightened unexpectedly, too fast, too deep, like a memory trying to claw up from a place he kept buried. He shook it off. He needed facts, not feelings. "Where are your parents?" he asked. She didn't answer. Her lips pressed into a trembling line. He switched angles. "What's your name?" She hesitated, then whispered. "Star." He stared at the cloth star in her hands, then at her. "That's not what I asked." A pause. A long, painful one. "They said my real name doesn't matter anymore." Alexander felt something in his chest crack, a memory, a regret, a ghost. He turned to the bedside table, grabbed the small dusk lamp, and flicked it, but the power was still dead. Understanding he needed to see her better, he pulled out his phone and switched on the flashlight. The beam revealed details he hadn't noticed before. Her lower lip was split. Her left knee bruised. Her fingernails broken, dirt beneath them. Her uniform, expensive, elite, but torn, muddy, and soaked through. This wasn't a runaway from poverty. This was a runaway from somewhere wealthy, structured, controlled. Which made the situation far more disturbing. She watched him silently. Like prey waiting to see if the predator would bite or turn away. Finally, she whispered, "You're the man from the picture." His heart seized. "What picture?" "In the hallway, the one with the little girl in the yellow dress. She had stars on her shoes. Your arm was around her." Alexander's throat closed. The photograph she mentioned had been taken down years ago. No one should have seen it. "I never went downstairs," she said quickly, reading his thought. "I didn't touch anything. I only came to the room with the big bed because it felt safe." He didn't know which part hit him harder, her words, or the fact that she said them with gentle apology rather than entitlement. He exhaled slowly, rubbing his temple. "Star," he said quietly, "I need you to tell me exactly how you entered this house." She looked right into his soul, her voice barely air. "I told you. I wished my way inside." And the house listened. Alexander stared, struggling between logic and dread, when the mansion's power suddenly flickered, lights flashing once, twice, then shutting down again as if something inside the house rejected stability. Star curled into the duvet, eyes wide. "They're coming," she whispered. Alexander's pulse quickened. "Who?" She closed her eyes. "The people who say children don't need names." He took one slow, stunned breath. Something terrible was unfolding. And he was already inside it. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Silence flooded the room like invisible smoke, heavy and unnerving. The storm outside seemed to quiet, as if the sky itself leaned in to listen. Alexander slowly lowered himself to the edge of the bed, keeping a respectful distance. The girl, Star, watched him through wary eyes, the way animals trapped in cages study movement, not to understand, but to predict threat. He noticed again how tightly she held that stitched fabric star. Tiny knuckles pale from pressure, fingertips trembling but refusing to let go. It wasn't a toy, it was armor. A fragile shield held together by threads and willpower. He softened his voice. "That object you're holding, may I see it?" Her reaction was immediate and visceral. She jerked back, pulling the duvet up around her like a cocoon, clutching the star so close he feared it might tear. No, she gasped, voice breaking like thin glass. You can't take it. You can't. It's all I have left. Alexander froze, not because of her words, but because of the terror inside them. This wasn't normal possession. This was lifeline attachment. He raised both hands slowly in surrender. All right. I won't touch it. Look, you're safe here. I only asked because I want to understand, not to take anything from you. Her breathing remained fast, but her grip loosened slightly as she processed his tone. She wasn't used to voices that explained, only voices that commanded. Can I ask what it means to you? He whispered. Star lowered her gaze, brushing her thumb along one of the uneven stitches. My mom made it, she murmured. Before they took her. Alexander's breath stilled. She told me that no matter where I went, even if I got lost, even if I disappeared so far that no one remembered my name, as long as I held Star, I was still real. She swallowed hard. They can erase things, but not this. Not if I keep it safe. There it was, the emotional anchor. The symbol that protected not just body, but identity, memory, and existence. A little fabric star, meaning. I still exist. Alexander felt something coil painfully inside his chest, not pity, but recognition. He knew the weight of memory made fragile. He knew what it meant to hold on to something because the world tried to take it. He had once held a pink beaded bracelet the same way. Years ago. Before life snatched someone from him too. Star noticed the shift in his eyes and studied his expression carefully. No one's supposed to know about it, she whispered. If they find out, they'll destroy it. They don't like things that make you remember. Who are they? He asked gently. She pressed her lips shut. Fear won that battle. Alexander exhaled slowly, deciding not to push. He looked again, really looked, at the star. It wasn't just fabric, it was a message. A code in plain sight. 5 uneven points. Thread colors mismatched, navy, gold, red, white, and green. Some stitches perfect, others jagged, rushed, frantic. Like a warning left mid-sentence. He noticed 3 tiny embroidered dots near the center, not decorative, but intentional. Patterned. He almost asked, but stopped, questions felt like knives right now. Instead, he shifted to what mattered. You said the house listened, he murmured. Why this house? Star blinked slowly. Because it feels like hers. Like the place she described. Alexander felt confusion build, but didn't interrupt. Star continued, she said one day I would find a big house on a hill that didn't want to hurt people. She said it would feel sad but still strong, like someone was missing but still watching. Her gaze drifted across the room, then settled slowly on the framed shadow of a dust-covered portrait stand in the far corner, draped with a cloth. What used to be there? She asked. Alexander stiffened. His stare turned iron. That image, that story, wasn't for strangers. He looked away. Some things are better left alone, he whispered. Star nodded slowly, surprisingly understanding. That's what my mother used to say, just before crying. Thunder rolled, softer this time. The mansion seemed to exhale. Alexander realized something unsettling. This child didn't just accidentally land in his home, she had been pulled here by strings he couldn't yet see. He tried another angle. Star. Are you hurt? She looked down, almost embarrassed, and nodded. May I check? I promise not to touch the star. She considered, then slowly lifted the duvet. Bruises up her ribs. A bandaged wrist, poorly done, wrapped with torn fabric. And around her ankle, faint marks resembling restraints. Alexander inhaled sharply, a flash of restrained rage firestorming behind his eyes. Who did that? He asked, low and dangerous. Star drew the duvet back up, burying herself again as if shrinking made her safer. They don't like when we ask questions, or remember things, or keep things. Then she whispered something so quiet he almost missed it. And they say children don't belong to themselves. Alexander stood, fury and disbelief swirling, but before he could respond, Star lifted the fabric star to her cheek like a pillow and whispered, "This is my proof that I wasn't born to disappear." Those words struck him harder than any bullet ever could. Alexander stood motionless, his breath heavy, his pulse drumming against the quiet like distant artillery fire. Everything he had built, the empire, the reputation, the bulletproof public image, depended on predictability and control. But nothing about this night obeyed logic, protocol, or even reality as he understood it. A billionaire didn't rise to power by being emotional. He rose by making decisions. Cold ones. Fast ones. Correct ones. Yet here he was, standing in his most private sanctuary, unable to decide whether to call for medical help, legal intervention, private intelligence, or simply wrap the trembling girl in a blanket and promise nothing would ever hurt her again. His mind raced through every protocol he had trained himself to follow. Step 1, report unidentified minor found on private property. Could lead to police, CPS, courts, media scandal, lawsuits. Step 2. Launch private investigation and isolate the variable. Could traumatize the child further, she might disappear or be taken. Step 3, detach emotionally. Already failed. He moved to the window, staring down at the storm-drenched courtyard lit only by faint backup lights. Every raindrop hit like a ticking clock, time passing, urgency tightening. Behind him, he heard Star sniff softly, trying to hide it as she wiped tears with the back of her hand, careful not to loosen her grip on the fabric star. His jaw tightened. He couldn't ignore that sound. He turned, and for a moment studied her in silence. A small child curled under heavy blankets, shaking not from cold, but memory. A child who should have been in a warm bed, tucked in by loving arms, but somehow ended up in a stranger's fortress in the dead of night. He took a slow breath, then spoke carefully. "Star, what would happen if I called the authorities? Police, hospital, or child services?" Instant panic surfaced, primal, instinctive, absolute. "They'll send me back," she whispered. "And if you go back, what happens?" She hesitated. When she spoke, it was a whisper full of dread. "I won't be me anymore." That answer landed like a blow. Not hurt, not punish, not kill. Erase. Alexander sat down, not too close, but close enough that she could hear his voice without fearing it. "I need you to understand something," he said, steady but conflicted. "You're in my home. Which means your safety is my responsibility. But I also have rules, laws, procedures I cannot ignore." Star's eyes didn't harden, but they did dim. She already understood. She had experienced adults choosing rules over humanity before. "You want to send me away," she said, voice flat, resigned. Not angry, not pleading, simply accepting what the world had taught her: no safe place is permanent. Alexander's throat tightened. "No," he replied quietly. "I want to do what's right. I just don't know what that is yet." Her voice trembled. "They said adults always do the thing that keeps themselves safe, not the child." He flinched. Whoever they were, they had taught her something true, and devastating. "I don't want to cause trouble," she whispered. "I only wanted a place where nobody talked loud or locked doors. I'll leave. I promise I won't make noise." He felt that sentence like ice water poured directly into his spine. Run away. Condition compliance. Fear of inconvenience. This child had been trained like property, not raised like a person. He leaned forward slightly. "You're not in trouble. And you're not leaving, not until I understand what you've been through." Star blinked, confusion surfacing. Kindness often confused her more than cruelty. Alexander rose and paced slowly, hands clasped behind his back. Beneath his calm exterior, a war raged, strategy versus conscience, reputation versus morality, logic versus instinct. As CEO, he was required to think. Protect assets, contain liability, eliminate risk. As a man, he now thought. Protect the girl. His internal voice, the one he buried years ago, whispered. If you send her away, she won't survive. He turned sharply, making his decision, halfway. Star, he said softly, I'm not going to give you to anyone tonight. You will stay here until I know the truth. But I need to earn your trust, not demand it. She studied him carefully, trying to decode sincerity from performance. People lie nicely before they hurt you, she whispered. He nodded. Then don't trust my words yet. Watch my actions. She sank slightly into the blankets, still frightened, but not fleeing. He knelt a few feet away, the closest he had willingly come to vulnerability in years. If you're telling the truth, he said quietly, then you're not just lost, you're hunted. And if that's the case, I won't let anyone take you. The words surprised him, they came from instinct, not logic. And instinct rarely spoke in boardrooms. Still, fear gnawed at him. If this situation became public, it would explode across news media. Billionaire harboring unidentified child in hidden mansion. One headline and he was destroyed. One mistake and she was destroyed. 2 lives now hung on a single path no rulebook covered. Star lifted her star again, whispering into its faded fabric. Mom. I found somewhere that almost feels safe. Please let it stay. And Alexander finally understood. This was no longer a question of protocol. It was a question of who he wanted to be. For several minutes, the room was silent except for the growling thunder and the faint ticking of an antique clock on the wall, a clock that had not chimed since the night his life changed. Alexander stood near it, staring but not truly seeing. Star remained wrapped in the duvet, motionless except for the subtle rise and fall of her breath. He needed answers, but he couldn't interrogate her like a suspect. He needed to earn her story. So he began not with questions, but with environment. Star, he said softly, would you prefer to stay in this room, or move somewhere warmer and brighter? Her eyes flicked around the dark suite. She didn't want to stay, but she didn't want to be carried away into unknown halls either. Somewhere I can see the door, she whispered. He understood instantly, trauma visibility instinct. Victims don't fear closed rooms, they fear unseen exits. All right, he said gently. Follow me if you're able. Star shifted slowly, wincing as she moved her injured knee. Alexander offered a hand, but she hesitated. When she finally took it, it was not because she trusted, but because the pain outweighed fear. He led her down a wide hallway toward a smaller sitting room, less intimidating than his master suite. The fireplace there was gas-powered and independent from the main circuits, so when he ignited it, warm golden light finally returned to the mansion. Star's shoulders relaxed by a fraction. Trauma survivors rarely show visible relief, but microtells were there. Black small square fingers uncurled by 1 degree. Black small square spine less rigid. Black small square breathing no longer silent but audible. She settled cautiously on the sofa nearest the door, knees drawn up slightly, Star held to her chest. Alexander sat several feet away, positioning himself angled, not squared, a subconscious gesture therapists use to reduce intimidation. I want you to speak only if you want to, he said. And only what you're comfortable sharing. I won't push. I won't rush. She glanced at him, surprised. Adults usually demanded clarity, not consent. He added, you control your story, not me. That sentence opened a door inside her. Star looked down at the star in her hands, rubbing a frayed edge between her fingers. My mom told me that stories are how people stay alive. Even when they're gone. Alexander's heart tightened. His daughter had once said something similar. Star inhaled shakily. Her voice was soft, but carried the weight of lived nightmare. I used to live somewhere beautiful, she began, eyes distant. A house with yellow curtains and a cherry tree outside my window. My mom braided my hair every morning and told me that my name was the most important thing I owned. Was? Alexander gently echoed. She nodded. Slowly. One night, everything changed. People came to our home. They weren't burglars. They were official. They talked in calm voices, but my mom's hands were shaking. She told me to hide under the bed and not make a sound. Tears pooled, but she blinked them back, crying wasn't allowed where she went next. I heard shouting. Papers. Something about custody. Something about a program. Alexander stiffened. There were only a few private institutions powerful enough to override parental rights without police involvement. And he personally knew the board members behind most of them. And your father? He asked softly. Star shook her head. I never met him. Mom said he was alive but very far, and very afraid. Afraid? Of what? The place she was taken. I was taken to a school, Star continued. But it wasn't like schools other kids talk about. There were no playgrounds. No art days. We didn't learn songs or stories. We learned obedience, silence, and perfection. Her small hands trembled. They said we were special. They said we were being prepared for important futures. But if we asked why, we didn't get answers, we got punished. Hard. A chill slid down Alexander's spine. What did they call this place? He asked. Star hesitated, then whispered. The Eden Program. Alexander's blood nearly froze. He knew that name. Not publicly. Not officially. But through confidential briefings and investor whispers. A private, elite youth development initiative, rumored to exist behind sealed contracts and non-disclosure agreements. It was supposed to be top-tier education. Not, whatever this was. The star object. How did you get the star? He asked, nodding toward the fabric shape. Star held it up gently. My mom made it the last night I saw her. She used pieces from her old clothes and mine. She stitched it fast, with a candle almost dying. She told me if I ever felt like I was disappearing, I must hold it and remember. You were born, you are real, and you are mine. Alexander inhaled shakily. What do the letters mean? He asked. She hesitated, brushing the embroidered center. There are secrets sewn inside, she said quietly. Things they're looking for. Things Mom told me to protect. She said if the wrong people find it, they'll finish what they started. He didn't ask more, not yet. Life inside Eden. Star continued, voice flat and rehearsed, not from clarity, but from survival detachment. They gave us numbers, not names. We slept in separate cubicles with lights that never turned off. They told us names make children weak. They taught us to speak only when spoken to. They fed us food with no taste. If someone cried, everyone had to stand without blinking. That's abuse, Alexander said, voice colder than ice. No, she whispered. Abuse leaves bruises that go away. This was erasing. The fire cracked, as if punctuating the horror. They told us the outside world forgets children anyway, so we must forget it first. They kept saying we were being reborn. Alexander clenched his fists, knuckles whitening, jaw rigid. What happened to the others? He asked. Star's eyes darkened. Some became silent forever. Others stopped recognizing themselves. We weren't allowed to form friends. If you whispered someone's name, both were punished. And if someone disobeyed too much, she swallowed. They vanished. Their bed stayed empty. No one asked. Alexander felt nausea rise, controlled but potent. The escape. How did you leave? He asked gently. She closed her eyes, replaying trauma frame by frame. One night, alarms went off in a different building. Nurses and guards ran. I don't know why. Maybe something bad happened to someone important. I hid in a laundry cart. I stayed still until they wheeled it outside. When no one was looking, I climbed out and ran. How far? I don't know. I just kept running until my feet bled. I followed lights, then silence. When I saw your house on the hill, it felt like a safe story Mom once told. So I wished. And then your door was unlocked. Alexander blinked. His home security was never unlocked. Star, how long were you running? She whispered. Days, or maybe weeks. Time there wasn't real, so I don't know what real time feels like now. She looked up, tears finally spilling. I didn't come here to be saved. I came here because everywhere else felt like I was already gone. Alexander sat back, shaken to his core, not by the horror, but by how controlled her retelling was. Children don't narrate like that unless they've been conditioned to detach. He realized something else. Her story didn't sound like imagination. It matched classified intelligence patterns he had heard in privileged circles, systems designed to break identity, rebuild obedience, and manufacture elite compliance. But she wasn't just a runaway. She was evidence. Evidence powerful people might kill for. And he was now harboring her. He looked at her, truly looked, and saw something beyond fear. A child fighting to exist. He whispered, voice steady with dangerous resolve. Star, no matter how they trained you, no matter what they told you, hear me clearly. You are not property. You are not a project. You are not disposable. You are a person. A tear slipped down her cheek. Silent and stunned, because no one had said those words to her before. She clutched the star again, not as armor now, but as memory. And somewhere inside, a new bond formed. Not rescuer and victim, but protector and rightful child. Star whispered one last line before exhaustion overtook her. My mom said someday someone would find me, someone whose heart could beat louder than their fear. Her eyes closed. Alexander remained awake, and afraid. Not of her, but of what was coming. Because now, they had a reason to come. Star didn't so much fall asleep as collapse into it, her small frame surrendering to exhaustion the way the wounded surrender to anesthesia. Her cheek pressed softly against the edge of the fabric star, breath uneven but no longer panicked. The firelight painted soft amber strokes across her tear-marked face, making her look even smaller, a child who had learned survival before childhood. Alexander sat silently in a nearby armchair, elbows on knees, hands folded before his mouth. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like a man in command. He felt like a man who had just stumbled upon a truth too heavy to ignore. He could leave, call authorities, or bury this problem. But he didn't move. He watched her sleep, not in fear, but in responsibility. There was something achingly familiar about the way she curled inward, as if trying to occupy less space. His daughter, Emily, once slept that way after nightmares. He remembered gently straightening her limbs so her body would learn it was allowed to rest without shrinking. Memories hurt, but now, they also guided him. After several quiet minutes, he stood and moved toward the hallway. He didn't want to wake her, so he walked lightly, each footstep cushioned by Persian rugs. In the kitchen, he switched to manual mode, something he hadn't done in years. And warmed broth, cut fruit, and filled a small crystal glass with electrolyte water. He placed everything on a tray, paused, then added 2 extra things. A soft, folded towel. A small weighted blanket. Not because he planned it, but because his instinct, the one he had buried beneath contracts and power and routine, awakened. When he returned, she was still asleep, though her brows twitched occasionally, silent nightmares. He set the tray on the side table, then draped the weighted blanket over her gently. Instantly, her breathing changed, deeper, steadier, safer. Weighted blankets mimic a hug. Even a child conditioned to avoid touch responded to safe pressure. He sat again, watching the fire reflect in her dark curls. Minutes passed, peaceful, until Star suddenly stirred, not violently, but abruptly, startled awake with shallow breaths. Her hand immediately checked for the fabric star, still there. She exhaled, relieved. Alexander leaned forward. "You're all right. You're safe. I'm right here." She blinked, orienting herself, then whispered, "I didn't mean to sleep. I'm sorry. I'm not supposed to fall asleep around people." "You don't need to apologize for being tired," he said softly. "Your body needed rest." She studied him, uncertain whether that was truth or test. Then her gaze shifted to the tray, and confusion crossed her face. "You made food?" He nodded. "Yes. I wasn't sure what you could eat, so I prepared something gentle." She stared at the bowl of broth as though it were a foreign artifact. "Is it real?" "Yes." "Is it safe?" The question wasn't sarcastic, it was genuine. "Yes," he answered honestly. "And you don't have to eat it if you don't want to." She hesitated, then moved slowly, testing if pulling the bowl closer would trigger reprimand. It didn't. She lifted the spoon awkwardly, trying not to drip. She ate the first sip carefully. The second faster. By the third, tears gathered again, but not from fear. Warmth. Food that tasted like care, not compliance. None of the metallic, chemically engineered meals she had been fed and eaten. Alexander looked away briefly to give her dignity. "If you want more later, there is plenty." Star wiped her mouth instinctively with her sleeve, a survival habit, until he handed her the folded towel. She froze, unsure if she was allowed to use it. He nodded gently. "Yes, it's yours." She pressed it slowly to her mouth, testing texture, then folded it neatly. Habit, training, perfectionism. Alexander wanted to break and rebuild her world, but slowly. Carefully. He leaned back, speaking in a quiet tone not meant to command but invite. "I'd like to make you a small room of your own here, if you want. One with curtains, real pillows, warm lights, and a door that only you can open." Star stared. Processing. Disbelieving. Hope hurt more than memory. "I never had a room that was mine," she whispered. "Only beds that changed." "You deserve your own space," he replied. She hesitated, then asked in a trembling voice. "Would it have colors?" "Yes." "May I choose them?" The question nearly broke him. He nodded. "Every one." She clutched the star again, but this time not with fear, with fragile longing. Then she whispered something so soft he almost missed it. "If I sleep again, and I wake up, will I still be here?" His answer came without hesitation. "Yes." Star stared deep into his eyes, searching not for kindness, but truth. After several seconds, she gave the smallest nod, like her heart had taken a single step forward. Then, "I can try to stay awake tomorrow instead," she said. He smiled faintly. "You don't have to try. Rest when you're tired." Another small silence settled, but this one was warm. Finally, Star adjusted her position on the sofa. Not curled into a defensive ball this time, but stretched slightly, letting her feet extend out. She placed her fabric star beside her cheek, and whispered. "It feels different here, like the air isn't trying to erase me. Alexander felt something rise in his chest, not sorrow, not pity, but purpose. He extinguished the thought of police, agencies, PR teams. Tonight, none of that mattered. Tonight, she wasn't a liability. She was a child who needed safety. He lowered his voice to a promise, not loud, not dramatic, but made of something unbreakable. You are safe. Not because you hid, but because you were found. Star's eyes drifted closed once more, not in collapse, but in permission. For the first time, she slept like a child. And for the first time in years. So did a wounded billionaire heart. Morning came quietly, too quietly. The storm had died sometime before dawn, leaving behind a sky that looked unnervingly peaceful, as if pretending the night before hadn't happened. The mansion's systems rebooted automatically with a soft hum, lights flickered back on, climate control initiated, digital screens revived one by one like waking ghosts. But for the first time, Alexander didn't feel comfort from the hum of technology. He felt watched, even inside his own fortress. Star lay curled on the sofa beneath the weighted blanket, still sleeping, slower, calmer, deeper. Sunlight streamed in from tall windows, casting stripes across her small frame. In daylight, the bruising was more evident, and so was the fragility. Alexander stood in the doorway, watching her with a quiet, protective intensity he hadn't felt for anyone in a long time. Something in him had shifted from logical analysis to moral obligation. After a long pause, he turned away and walked toward his private office, a secure, biometric-sealed room with no external network access. He needed answers. Not emotional ones, factual ones. He started by reviewing the mansion surveillance logs. The footage still showed no intruder, no door breach, no thermal anomalies. It was as if Star materialized inside his home from thin air. Impossible. But also undeniable. His next query, the Eden program. The results shocked him. All public record references had been removed. Web pages returned, not found, articles archived, blogs erased, scraped. Even confidential investor files were missing, replaced with access denied, redacted. Someone had scrubbed the world clean. That meant two things. Whatever Eden was doing, it was bigger than he thought. Anyone who knew about it was either silenced, or complicit. A chill crept down his spine. He turned off every network device, switched to offline encrypted systems, and began searching peripheral sources, whistleblower forums, darknet academic leaks, abandoned legal notices, declassified fragments. Patterns emerged, faint, but real. Words repeated. Behavioral re-engineering, identity suppression, mnemonic reset trials. And the most chilling. Property class minors. His jaw locked. Suddenly, a soft voice spoke from the doorway. You're reading things they don't want anyone to read. He turned sharply. Star stood there, small and barefoot, blanket still wrapped around her shoulders like a cloak. Her voice was calm, too calm, like someone who already knew the cost of curiosity. He softened. I didn't mean to wake you. You didn't. The house did, she whispered. He frowned. The house woke you. She nodded. The noise it makes when it's worried. He stared at her, trying to decide whether she meant metaphor, trauma hallucination, or something else. Before he could ask, she stepped closer, voice lowering. We shouldn't talk about Eden out loud. His heart thudded. Why not? Because walls remember. The air felt colder. Before he could push further, a sudden blaring alarm cut through the mansion, not from inside, but from the perimeter security network surrounding the estate. Alexander rushed to a console and brought up external live feeds, and froze. At the bottom of the long, winding driveway, barely visible through the morning fog, sat three matte black SUVs. No logos, no license plates, windows tinted so dark they reflected only emptiness. Too still. Too silent. Too early. Not paparazzi. Not criminals. Professionals. Star's small voice barely rose above a whisper. They found me. Alexander's hands curled slowly into fists. How? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she reached inside her sleeve and pulled out a small metallic tag, no bigger than a fingernail, jagged, broken, and stained. They hide them in our clothes, she said. Threads that aren't really threads. Alexander took it with a controlled breath and placed it into a signal-blocking containment box. The SUVs didn't move, they simply waited, like hunters confident that prey had nowhere else to run. The phone on Alexander's desk vibrated. An unknown private number. Then another. Then another. He didn't answer. A message appeared on the encrypted monitor. Mr. Cole, we believe you have something that belongs to us. Belongs. That word ignited fury. Another message appeared. Cooperate, and this will end quietly. A third followed, seconds later. Fail to comply, and we will retrieve the asset by protocol. Star flinched, whispering, asset. Alexander typed his reply in 3 words. Not for sale. A long pause. Then the screen flashed white and suddenly shut down. Remote access breach detected. Alexander yanked the power supply instantly, severing every connection. He turned to Star. We need to move you. Star clutched her fabric star, voice trembling. They'll take me even if you hide me. They always do. No, he said firmly, kneeling before her. You've never had someone who could fight back. She stared, confusion fighting belief. You're not afraid of them, she asked. Not anymore, he replied. But she wasn't convinced. Everyone's afraid of them. He leaned in, voice fierce but gentle. They don't know who they're dealing with. Her lips parted, not in hope, but in shock at his certainty. Suddenly a loud metallic clank echoed from the far gate. The first SUV door opening. Alexander stood, full height, shoulders squared with the silent rage of a man who had lost once and would not lose again. He whispered only one command. Star, stay behind me. Her voice shook. What are you going to do? He didn't answer. Not because he didn't know. But because he knew exactly what came next. He was going to war. The SUVs no longer waited. They moved. Slowly, deliberately, like predators confident in the inevitability of capture. Their engines purred, low, expensive, government grade or better. They stopped directly before the mansion's grand steps, and 3 figures emerged. Not police. Not social workers. Not kidnappers. Corporate emissaries. The kind who carried power without uniforms. Their suits were charcoal, identical, tailored, their expressions trained to neutrality. No badges were displayed, only credentials far more intimidating, authority without oversight. Alexander stepped outside before they could knock, the front door shutting behind him with a deliberate thud. The morning air was cool, but his voice was colder. You're trespassing on private property. The woman in front smiled like someone who had already won. Mr. Cole, thank you for cooperating. We'll make this brief. You currently have possession of an unregistered minor under protective designation. We're here to retrieve her. His stare didn't waver. She's not property. The woman didn't blink, predators don't react. Our program has full institutional guardianship. She was assigned to our facility for development and evaluation. We have legal documentation. No judge signs a child's identity away, he said. Oh, but they do, she answered smoothly. With the right incentives, anyone can disappear on paper. Alexander stepped closer, voice dangerously low. What exactly are you training children for? Her smile sharpened. The future. A better class of leadership. Emotionless, durable, obedient, optimized. The world needs fewer soft hearts, Mr. Cole, and more dependable assets. Alexander felt rage boil, not loud, but lethal. And how many do not survive this optimization process? She shrugged. Marginal loss is expected in all research. Research. Not upbringing. Not education. Not childhood. Before he could speak, she leaned in slightly. You, of all people, should understand. Your daughter's psychological profile shows she would have qualified. Shame she didn't live long enough. The world stopped. His fists clenched, every muscle screaming to break her composure, but he didn't. Because anger was a weapon, and weapons must be aimed, not thrown. You studied my family, he said quietly. We study all potential donors, investors, and high-yield guardians, she replied. And we know children like Star get attached easily. That's why we intervene early. She's not going back with you. You misunderstand. Her voice dropped to something chillingly calm. It's not permission we seek. It's compliance. Inside the mansion, Star stood behind the door, clutching her fabric star, listening to every word. Her knees shook violently, but she didn't run, she had run enough in her life. This time, she waited. Because for the first time ever, someone was fighting for her, not over her. The woman opened a sleek black folder and held out a set of papers. Sign the non-disclosure agreement, release the minor, and we will ensure no public or legal complications. You'll be compensated appropriately. Alexander stared at the contract, a document built from money and threats. Then he tore it in half without looking down. The woman exhaled, irritation cracking her polished demeanor for the first time. Mr. Cole, you're making a mistake. We do not lose assets. And I don't abandon children, he replied. Her eyes narrowed. So you intend to expose us? He stepped backward toward the door, posture tall, voice controlled. You built a system in the shadows. I'm going to drag it into the light. The woman raised her chin. You can't. Alexander's tone turned final. Not loud, but absolute. Watch me. He turned, opened the door, and guided Star outside, not hiding her, not shielding her, but standing with her in full view. The emissaries saw the fabric star in her hands, and fear flashed for the first time. The woman's voice sharpened. Mr. Cole, that object contains proprietary information. No, he corrected, placing a hand on Star's shoulder. It contains the last piece of her mother. Star looked up at him. Not with disbelief, but with identity. For the first time, someone named her without stripping her. The woman extended her hand toward Star. Come here, child. You belong with us. Star trembled, but didn't move closer. Alexander knelt beside her, speaking loud enough for them to hear. You don't belong to anyone. And if you choose to stay, I'll protect you with everything I am. But the decision is yours, not theirs. You choose your path. Star's lip trembled, tears forming, because no adult had ever given her choice, not even a small one. I want to stay, she whispered. The lead emissary spoke through clenched teeth. Illegal guardianship. We will contest it. Alexander stood straight, eyes blazing. Then I'll meet you in court. She sneered. You think the law protects you? No, he said. It protects her, when the right people hold it accountable. And I am done staying silent. He stepped forward, voice unwavering. Take this message back. If you come for her again, you will not be met with negotiations. The woman stared long, then finally signaled her team back to the SUVs. This isn't over. It is for today, he replied. The vehicles reversed slowly, disappearing into the fog. But not the story. Not the battle. Not the war. Because now that they knew where Star was, the real fight had only begun. The mansion felt different after the SUVs disappeared, not safer, not quieter, but chosen. The air seemed to shift around Star, no longer pressing her into corners but wrapping around her carefully, like the first hint of belonging. Alexander relocked the manor, activated his most guarded security systems, then escorted Star to his private study, not to interrogate, but to document her existence in a way no one could erase again. He sat her in a wide leather chair across from his desk, the same seat where presidents, CEOs, and royalty had once sat. But tonight, the most important person to ever sit there was a child who almost disappeared from the world. He spoke gently. Star, today was only the beginning. I meant what I said, I will protect you. But now we have to make sure no one can alter your story again. Star touched her fabric star nervously. Are you sure I'm allowed to stay here? Alexander looked her straight in the eyes, voice unwavering. You're not allowed to be here. You're meant to be here. Star didn't cry. Not loudly, but her lower lip quivered like her body didn't know how to process words that held her instead of hurt her. Alexander opened a secure file case and removed several items. His personal legal seal. A blank identity record request form. A certificate request for official guardianship papers. His late daughter's photo album. He placed the album on the desk slowly. It was not a comparison. It was an invitation. He slid it toward Star. You don't have to look. But I want you to know what love looked like in this house. Star hesitated, then opened the album carefully, as if afraid the memories might crumble. Page after page revealed a world she had never experienced, paintings made with messy hands, backyard birthday candles, silly selfies, matching pajamas on the staircase at Christmas. By the third page, she whispered, she smiled with her whole face, like her heart was teaching her how. Alexander swallowed hard. She did. Star traced one picture with a finger and murmured. She looks like a wish that came true. There was a pause, one that filled the room, softened it, blessed it. Finally, Alexander spoke. She was. And so are you. Star closed the album slowly and looked up. Are you going to change my name? No, he said. You will tell me your real name when you're ready. Until then, I will call you Star, not because they renamed you, but because you chose it to survive. Her breath caught. Almost like a tiny sob escaped through hope. He continued. Tomorrow morning, we will meet my personal attorney. A real one. We'll file for urgent protective guardianship, a judicial order of safety, and an identity reinstatement protocol. Will they let you keep me? She asked. He smiled, a real one, not a businessman one. I'm not asking for permission. I'm claiming responsibility. Star held the fabric star tighter, and for the first time, it wasn't out of fear, it was gratitude. The next morning, the world changed. Not through dramatic chase scenes or explosions, but through paper, truth, testimony, and courage. Alexander walked into the courthouse with Star beside him, not behind him, and filed every document personally, signing his name in bold, unshakable strokes. When a skeptical clerk asked, "What relation is the child to you?" Alexander answered clearly, without hesitation. Family. It echoed. Not legally, not yet, but spiritually, irrevocably. The judge reviewed the emergency petition and studied Star quietly. She stood small, silent, clutching her fabric star, but not shrinking. Do you want Mr. Cole to be responsible for you? The judge asked gently. Star didn't speak immediately, she took a breath, then stepped forward. He didn't choose me because I'm useful. He chose me because I'm real. The courtroom stilled, even the judge blinked back emotion. Paper after paper was signed. Protective custody granted. Further investigation ordered. Eden program suspended pending inquiry. Star was no longer invisible. Weeks passed. Warm meals replaced silent ones. Books replaced instruction manuals. Laughter replaced alarms. Choice replaced compliance. Her wounds healed, slowly, but they healed. She painted her own bedroom walls in colors she chose, not colors assigned. She learned how to sleep without fear of being awakened by command. She learned the sound of someone knocking before entering. And one night, while Alexander tucked a blanket around her, not because she needed it, but because he wanted her to feel chosen, she spoke quietly. "My real name is Amara." He smiled. "That's a beautiful name." "It means grace," she whispered. "My mother said she chose it so I wouldn't become what the world expected, but what the world needed." Alexander's voice softened to a whisper of reverence. And she was right. She smiled, small but pure, and handed him the fabric star. "For safekeeping," she said. He froze. "What about you?" She pointed slowly to her chest. "I don't need it to prove I exist anymore." One quiet evening, as the sun set behind the hill and the mansion filled with gentle light, Amara asked softly, "Why did you really keep me?" Alexander looked at her, truly looked, and answered with the words that would one day become the mission statement etched into the stone foundation of the Cole Institute for Lost Children. "Because the world doesn't just need children who survive. It needs children who remember they were born for more." He rested his hand over hers, no pressure, no command, just connection. And she whispered the final line, the one that ended the story yet began a new one. "I wasn't saved. I was seen."